Welcome, and thank you for joining us as we explore the Amplify Spanish digital resources and provide guidance around getting started with instruction. We understand the delay of materials at the start of the school year is a challenge, so we have developed guidance for you to help you get started with instruction starting day one of the school year. Our Amplify team has created a guide for you outlining the physical materials that will be necessary for each lesson of your first unit. By the end of our time together, we hope you feel comfortable and confident in the digital resources you have available to you and the guidance that we can provide to ensure you have everything you need to get started with instruction. We appreciate your patience and understanding while we work to deliver these materials to you as soon as possible. We're excited for you to begin instruction utilizing our digital materials. During our time together today, we are going to discuss Amplify's recommendation on printing your materials and your digital recommendations. So we may suggest that you sometimes project over printing. We're also going to discuss implementation guidance so you not only know how to access the digital materials, but also how you will use the materials for instruction in your classroom. And lastly, we're going to do our best to make sure we are clear on what we recommend you print, how many copies you should print, and whether you are printing for the entire class or just one copy per student. And times that it is not maybe recommended to maybe print and how you can utilize digital resources instead. So if you are a dual language, kindergarten through second grade teacher, or a leader who supports K through second dual language teachers, you're in the right place. So to get started, let's take a look at kindergarten skills in Unit 1. For the first unit in Amplified Texas, Spanish Language Arts Reading Skills, Habilidades y Destrezas, you really only need a few things to provide instruction. Your teacher's guide, your Spanish activity book, and the digital components that are found on the teacher resource side. So we are going to look at some of those materials and get some guidance on how you can better prepare with these Spanish materials. So for your teacher materials, our recommendation is to use the teacher's guide as a digital resource. You can have it pulled up on your computer, you can have an iPad, smartphone, or use digital versus printing. You do have the option to download and print it if you choose to do so. But if you print it, we really recommend only printing out the actual daily lessons versus the entire guide, as our teacher guides are very lengthy documents. For your student materials, we do recommend printing one copy of the activity book pages needed for your daily lessons for each student. These activity book pages are used in class and also include take-home work and letters for families. So let's take a look at your Skills Unit 1, Lesson 1. You'll see we've included your lesson at a glance, which is always a very helpful resource for daily planning. And as you begin to think about your instructional implementation, the material column will be especially helpful there. Now, this section of the lesson at a glance is really going to provide you the physical materials needed to really execute your lesson. So you'll see in this particular sample of lesson 1, there are a few classroom materials that you're going to need to get kinder up and running. Crayons, instruments, maybe objects that make sounds or noises, chart paper, and some other objects. You're also going to need activity book page 1.1, and that will need to be printed so it can be sent home with your students. As you can see here, you have all of these materials in Spanish ready for you to use. Now let's navigate to Skills 1 on the teacher resource site. I really want to show you the materials and to see where you find these materials. So let's navigate there and make sure we know where to find our materials needed. So let's take a look first at going to our website and really making sure that we're in the right grade, kindergarten. I'm in English here, but I'm going to toggle to Spanish. And as you can see, I have habilidades y destrezas right here, and then conocimiento, which we'll cover later in a different session. So let's take a look at habilidades y destrezas. As you can see, I have a teacher's guide, I have my student materials and components, digital components. Let's start with our guía de maestro. As we navigate through our teacher's guide, I want you to see that we have a table of content here that really maps out our lessons right here. So we're looking to see what lessons we're going to be doing. And as we navigate through this document, you'll notice we come to an introduction, a welcome, and then why our unit is important. We suggest that you read this and you really get into this in a digital format, in a digital way, because as you navigate through this, there'll be a lot of important information that is crucial for you to read and prepare. So all of these things are there for you to actually go in and take a look at prior to teaching your first lesson. I'm going to where you begin your first lesson because I want to walk you through getting to that page where you will start your instruction. So past the scope and sequence and into your very first lesson, which is here. As you can see, we have this lesson ready to go, and it may be helpful to print the first week of lessons versus the entire teacher guide. You just saw me go through a lot of pages. I'm on page 31. There's no need to print the prior 30 pages. So this is a great place to start and really start getting into your materials as well. As we navigate back and go to our next piece, Cuaderno de Actividades, as you can see, we have pages that accompany the lesson, and you will find them here. Again, a lot of extra pages, so no need to print those, but definitely getting into where we will need to find our pages that are labeled specifically for each lesson. So again, you can see we have a few pages here that accompany the lesson that you are going to be doing. As you get into your digital components, I do want us to take a look at these specifically for this unit. Your table of content is here. And again, these are pieces that we definitely mean to use this piece of it digitally. Again, there's no need to be copying this. It really is meant to be projected so that your class can see it and you can use it as you do your instruction. So I want us to move next to grade 1, and let's take a look at skills there. So I'm heading back to walk you through the next part. So let's take a look at first grade, habilidades y destrezas. We are in unit 1, and for this unit, to do your SLAR skills here, you will be starting and looking at your first lesson, and you will need again your teacher's guide, your student activity book, image cards, and digital components that are found on the teacher's site. So let's look at some of these materials just for guidance, just to see what you need to do with that. And as you look at this document, you'll notice that we are recommending again that it is important to just sort of get into that teacher's guide and really use it digitally. So again, looking at it on an iPad, smartphone, or some laptop, that would be a great option. You can always download it, you can print it, but we recommend printing just a few pages. Again, student page is important for grade 1. As a dual language teacher, we are going to want to provide those activity book pages for each of your students during their daily lessons. So this is where you have to prep for those activity pages and make sure that you have that for class use and to send home as well. I want you to take a look at a skills lesson in Spanish here. This is Unit 1, Lesson 1. As you can see, I've provided at a glance. In Spanish, we call that vistazo a la lección. And as you can see, it's going to provide you lots of information here. What are you doing in your lesson? But also, how will I be grouping, right? How long should I group for each of those sections? And then what are the materials that I'm going to need for classroom use? So you'll definitely need activity book page 1.1 and 1.2, as you can see there. And then there's some take home, right? Material para llevar a casa. We have some image cards that we'll need. I gave you an example of some of those there that will be needed for this lesson. So just a quick sample of the type of work that you will begin to get into as you launch your first week of instruction in Spanish. So let's take a quick navigation tour of what those look like in first grade, particularly in Spanish, so you can see what you have. I will navigate and switch grade levels up here. So my first grade teachers, dual language teachers, make sure that you are moving to your grade level and that you are actually choosing Spanish, Español. Um, let's get into the teacher's guide and let's look at that as well. Similar to Kinder, we have materials here in your teacher's guide. Again, same format with the table of contents here and laying out your lessons for the first week or two. Again, a lot of content here, definitely content we want you to read. It is really setting you up for success here, talking about the science of reading and how the component is organized. You do get a calendar here, which is extremely important to read and sort of get a sense of what you'll be diving into, so descriptions. And then you will see some information on evaluation as well. But I want to get us to the very first lesson because I know as you prepare for your first week, we want you to make sure that you get into and read this, but certainly get right into your lesson as well and begin to unpack what you'll need. So as you navigate to this part and look at your lesson and make some decisions about what you will be printing here. Again, I mentioned that vistazo a la lección, or that at a glance, to make sure you are looking at that, and then materials that accompany that and things that you need to prepare as well. So this is where you will find that. You will also find cuaderno de actividades for your students that show you what your students will be working in. Again, no need to print all of this, but definitely get into the pages that you'll be needing for your lesson and making sure all your students have a page for that. Componentes digitales, also important. Remember, these are things that you just have to project. No need to print these. These are there to support the learning in your classroom, so those are important to look at as well. And as we come back here, we do have some other items here that you are welcome to look at. I'm going to go back and move us into the next section. So as you can see, we are going to get into second grade and take a look at our second grade skills in Spanish. So I want us to look at how that unpacks itself. And as you can see, similar to Kinder and First, we have teacher guides, student activity books, and digital resources ready to go. And so I want us to look into those materials and that guidance to make sure. So as you receive this guidance document, that'll really help you to see what it is that you need to prep and get ready. We know that we're going to use our teacher's guide digitally, and we know that our student materials are extremely important to make sure that you come in here and look at what it is that you need. What pages do you need to pull from here, which are my components, digital components. There are some tarjetas de imágenes, right? Some image cards that you'll have to pull and make some decisions about, and we definitely have some recommendations on how to do that. So get in there and look at what your lessons are mapping out like. As you see, we take a look at your skills unit 1 lesson, and you'll see we've included that lesson at a glance there. We also think it's important that you look at everything that needs to happen for that. What are my main components? What am I teaching? How am I grouping? And how long should I take? Some examples of materials that I need to go find so that I am ready to present and deliver. What will I be printing? Here's some pages, 1.1 that needs to be printed, 1.2 as well. And if you're doing some work with spelling, right, then there's a form there that you'll need to capture some spelling practice, some additional information there for having to look at what extra materials might I need. Again, those image cards that I talked about, and possibly a spiral to capture some writing with the students. So let's navigate out to second grade and take a look at that. Remember to toggle over to Spanish. You also have these in English, but we are looking at Spanish right now. So as we get into our Spanish guide, I want us to take a look at that. Again, set up very similar to how Kinder and First is set up. Your table of content gives you a lot of great information overview of what you'll be doing. That is also the introduction, which again, as I stated in Kinder and First, important for you to read information similar to what we did in Kinder and First. So a calendar that really gives you more detailed information day by day. And as we get into making sure there's some routines and different things that you're going to cover. I want us to get to that lesson because I want to have you see where we're going to be with that lesson. This is actually an additional cursive lessons that are included here for second grade. We know that that is a standard that we begin in second grade. We are writing legibly, but then we move into introducing cursive here. So that is actually there provided for you as an additional resource to use outside of our core instruction. I get to our lesson. It is a review of some basic code that we have done before. So your students will be getting into quite a bit of a review from the previous year. And this is important for us to make sure that we are doing this part and shoring up. So as you're looking at this, making sure that you are going through this and picking and choosing what it is that you need to print so that you are ready to start your first week of lessons. As we go back and look at your student activity book, you'll notice that here are the pages that you'll be using. So 1.1 and 1.2, and just a sample of that. We also have some digital components for skills in Spanish, and here's our table of content to sort of show us what's happening and when we're doing some of these. So just an example, again, these digital components are things that are meant to be projected and really not meant to be printed. They're really for you to use during your instruction and for your kids to be able to see. So we come back and leave you with some important reminders before we close. We want to make sure that you know all your materials that you will need to launch your first few weeks are there digitally available for you. So make sure that you get into our Spanish resources there for you in English as well, but particularly for skills in Spanish in habilidades and destrezas. We need to make sure we know we have all our materials there. Certainly you can download them and print them and project them. And we want to make sure you have options based on your individual needs as you're teaching, but as your student needs as well, taking that into consideration. We showed you an at a glance, el vistazo, and we want to provide you a quick overview of your lessons for you to get started. We feel that it's a really go-to resource for daily instruction and planning, and it is going to help you with your timing, your pacing, what lesson components you're teaching, how you're grouping, and really any current planning materials that you're going to need to get going. Now, refer to that material guidance document that I talked about for all of the units K1-2. Those are your first 15 days of instruction. This tool is meant to help you take the guesswork out of what you need in order just to plan a successful instruction during your first weeks of school. So we know you can do this. We are here to help you and we will continue to support you. So at the end of this, you may still have some questions and we want to make sure you can follow up on this and you can turn to something like this. So we have an amazing website here. We've provided it for you. It is very specific to Amplify Texas, available for you at texas.amplify.com. At the site, there are some help articles that you can look at to further your knowledge. We also have on-demand professional development resources in there that you can take a look at, and other great tools that are going to help you plan and prepare for using your Texas ELAR and SLAR K5. If you need to reach out, you can do so via email, live chat from the teacher resource site, or we have a toll-free number that you can talk to one of our amazing educational support team members. So in closing, we'd like to say once again, thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. And really, thank you for all you do to ensure that all of our dual language students are successful every day. We are in your corner and we will continue to provide ongoing support in the days to come as you begin your school year and as your materials arrive on your campus. So we look forward to hearing and seeing your successes and your victories. And we want to thank you for the partnership because we want you to have an amazing start of the year.